There was a huge demonstration, pro-Israel demonstration of Jews in Washington, D.C. Someone asked me if I was going to go. A friend of mine texted me and said, "Are you going to be there?" And I was so exhausted from traveling. I'd been traveling and traveling. I was just absolutely wiped out. And I said, "No, I'm going to stay home, but I'm going to feel guilty." So I have a communion with Jews because Jews are famous for their Jewish guilt. So I'll feel guilty. And she said, "Well, guilt is good." And I said, "It must be because God made so much of it." But it was a beautiful demonstration. They're saying it may have been as many as 300,000 people. Huge. And of course, the press underplayed it, but it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see, I have to say this, it was wonderful to see Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson standing together, Chuck Schumer and right-wingers standing together, because in the same way that evil doesn't care about left or right, the left is embroiled in an evil ideology, wokeness, but that's because they have all the power. They have all the cultural power. And when you get the power, the evil is very tempting. If we had all the power, if we ran the media, and the conservatives have run the media, then most of the evil would be coming from us, but it's coming from them because they have the power. But the peacefulness of the rally, the patriotism, the moral clarity of people speaking very clearly about what was right and what was wrong. Well, let's listen to Hakeem Jeffries. This is kind of a historic occasion on which he actually says things I agree with.
We are here, more than 100,000 people strong, to unequivocally declare never again. Never again. Never again. The state of Israel must always exist as a safe haven for the Jewish people. And so we stand together with the Jewish community in Israel. We stand together with the Jewish community in America. We stand together with the Jewish community all throughout the world. We stand together in the effort to crush anti-Semitism. We stand together in the effort to crush anti-Jewish hate. We stand together in the effort to bring home the hostages. We stand together in the effort to make sure that America will always be a safe space for the Jewish community in every single zip code.
See, and to see him standing next to Mike Johnson, who's obviously one of the most conservative members of the House, now the Speaker of the House, of course, just to me, this is a lot more of what America should be like. I just thought that it was a beautiful demonstration. And these are very sneaky Jews. These sneaky Jews are trying to make their enemies look bad by being better people than they are. Because let's compare them to the pro-Hamas people who have burned flags, burned American flags, who have stormed police stations, stormed the DNC. Here is a girl storming the DNC. And listen to the lack of moral clarity, which is what we're going to be talking about.
We're outside the DNC. We're outside the Democratic Party headquarters because this party claims to be on the side of life and peace and equality. And we're saying that we want them to live up to their values and oppose this horrific war and call for a ceasefire now. And we're being responded to by the police shoving anti-war activists down the stairs, shoving peaceful protesters back with their bikes. And because our party that 80% of us want a ceasefire, would rather beat up protesters.
Do all leftist women think that if they scream vague generalities, vague moral generalities, and gesticulate that sound profound or something like that? I feel so bad for leftist men. I mean, is that what I woke up to in the morning? Man, I would come in here with a bullet in my head one day. But listen to this guy in London. Listen to the clarity of this guy in London. I love this guy. I want this guy to come here and run for president. I have no idea who he is, but he's out there talking to women who are protesting for Gaza and just making some incredibly specific, salient points as opposed to that woman. I just have to play this because I loved it so much. Cut 6.
These women here, go to Gaza. You want to go talk in Gaza? These women, they can't talk in Gaza. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's become fashion. It's fashion. It's fashion, this bullshit. It's fashionable. Yes. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, does it? How many bombs? France, in Syria, here, London. All it is an excuse to hate Jews. It's us. The problem's us, innit? It's us. You think tomorrow, if there was no Israel, this problem would be solved? They kill each other. What, genocide? We're the worst that committed genocide. The population has tripled in the last 10 years. Genocide. They're idiots. They're idiots blind. multiplying by hate.
I love it. I love the idea. We're so bad at committing genocide, they keep multiplying, which is absolutely true. All right. So let's look for a moment at what is happening over there. There's people calling for ceasefire, which is calling for the death of Israel, the extermination of Israel. Now, the thing is, Hamas, we had a ceasefire. Hamas violated the ceasefire, started a war with Israel, committing absolute mind-boggling atrocities, knowing that idiots like that pro-Hamas woman would accept their narrative that somehow there's some sophisticated, complex moral equivalence between Hamas and Israel. Somebody, children died here, and children will die there, and this number of people died here, and this number of people died here. Someone asked me online, if a terrorist is hiding behind two children, do you kill the children to get to the terrorist? Well, that's not the equation. The equation is this: the terrorist, if he lives, will kill 50 or 100 children. We know this because he already has, and we know he'll kill more. So that's the equation you're looking at. That's why you're at war to begin with. They will kill hundreds more children if they live. So the two children that they are hiding behind, and they are hiding behind civilians, the two children you have, because you're decent Israeli people, you have to do everything you can to save those children and keep from harming them, and you have to make sure that terrorist dies. He is evil. He will kill many, many more children if he gets away. You have to make sure he dies. The nature of things is obvious to us. So if you've ever been to Israel, if you've ever spoken to the Israelis, they live in a democratic state. They live in a place where women have rights. They live in a place where Muslims and Christians go without being persecuted, where they have rights, where they can worship as they want. When it's time for the prayers, the Muslim prayers, people on the street, taxi drivers throw their mats down and start praying on the street. No one bothers them. Nothing like that happens. Muslims have served in the highest levels of the Israeli government. So and we also know that the people in Hamas, something like 70% of the people in Gaza support the people of Hamas who incinerate babies, who rape women to death, who desecrate their bodies in Gaza while nobody does anything about it, who brag about these horrific, horrific things they do. We know the nature of these things, and yet the BBC was capable of looking at a Reuters report and making the following report about it.
We are hearing from Reuters that is reporting that Israel, it says its forces are carrying out an operation against Hamas in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, and they are targeting people, including medical teams as well as Arab speakers. They are also saying that Israel is calling on all Hamas operatives in the hospital to surrender at this point.
They're killing. Now, they apologized for this, and they said, we misread it. But how do you unless you're, like the guy said, you're blinded by hate, how do you misread that? How do you not know that the Israelis don't do that? They do everything to not do that. If you visit Israel, when you open the papers and read the editorials, you can't believe the level of ethical thinking. I wish the New York Times, I wish the Wall Street Journal had the kind of ethical thinking that you get in an Israeli newspaper. It was so ridiculous that a satire show in Israel that I can't pronounce the name of it, but it's their big satire show, did an imitation of the BBC. Here it is.
Good evening from London. 39 days after Hamas freedom fighters peacefully attacked Israel, we have now an exclusive interview with its leader, Yahya Sinwar.
Yes, good evening, Rachel. Let me just correct you. Oh. There were also freedom rapists and freedom butchers.
Of course, I apologize.
Yeah, they're freedom fighters, I don't know if you remember, my friend Bruce Fierstein wrote a couple of James Bond films, and one of them has the line where somebody says one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and James Bond says he's not a freedom fighter if he's not fighting for freedom. Hamas is declared, their declaration is not to fight for freedom. They want everyone to be a Muslim, and they want all the Jews dead. That's what they're fighting for. That is their goal. This is war. They started a war. War is a word with a meaning. I hate war. I would avoid war all the time, every time, but you can't. You just can't. That's not the human condition. This is where we are. In 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. They killed about 2,400 people. Show the picture of Berlin. This is what Berlin looked like when we were through answering the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. There it is. It's in rubble. If you're listening now, it's just rubble. A civilian city of Berlin. It's the capital, but we also bombed Dresden. We also bombed Hiroshima. We also bombed Nagasaki. Now that crazy DNC lady could be screaming, Berlin, it's not even the capital of Japan. We leveled 2 civilizations to the ground because they killed 2,400 people in Pearl Harbor. In Israel, the Hamas murdered, and murdered is even a polite word. They tortured, they raped, they dismembered, they desecrated, they kidnapped 1,200 people. That is, I'm an English major. This is my math, so maybe it's wrong, but I figured out it was 75 times percentage-wise the number of deaths in Pearl Harbor. There is no proportionality. There is no mercy. There is no ceasefire. This is war. Just like America's enemies in World War II, just like them, these were not attacks meant to establish a negotiation. These are attacks of terror and conquest. They were meant to get stupid idiots like the pro-Hamas protesters, the left-wing pro-Hamas protesters, the queers for Palestine who'd be killed for being queer, the women for Palestine who'd be dressed up like the ghost of Christmas yet to come, and the women in Palestine, in Gaza, are beaten regularly, are abused regularly. They have no real rights. That's what they want. That is what they're fighting for. And the Israelis are fighting for something different. They're fighting to be left alone. There's no two-state solution with people who want to exterminate your state. There's no ceasefire. There's only victory. That's why we bombed those places. The British when I lived in England, the British constantly teased me about Americans showing up late for World War II. You showed up late for World War II. And I used to say, well, you guys have been killing each other for 2,000 years. How would we to know this was the big one, right? But this war is more dangerous to Israel than World War II was to us. Hitler only wanted to enslave us. These people want to exterminate this country. They have to be killed. There is no moral complexity about this. There is no moral complexity. And I want to say to all the people, by the way, I don't want to deal with anything that's happening at the Daily Wire, but I want to say to all people who write to me with anti-Semitic remarks about Ben Shapiro and who suggest that Ben Shapiro can buy my opinion or buy Matt Walsh's opinion or buy Michael Knowles' opinion or would try. I want to just say to you with all charity and all due respect, get bent. You are ignorant fools. You do not know how this place operates. If you were half the man Ben is, you could climb out from under the rock you live under and look at the light of day, but don't do it now. You would just embarrass yourselves. This is war. That's what the word war means. If you want great content like that, like and subscribe. And if you want even more great content, subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.